Oh, I don't know. These things are sent to try us, and boy, don't they work. Let's just see if it is actually working properly. Don't think it is. Yeah, it looks to be okay. Well, it's not working like that actually on the on that machine there. So I don't understand it. Anyway, let us see how we get on today. It is not as beautiful as it was yesterday. It is quite dark. It was spitting with rain, looking gloomy and miserable. Not cold though. Nobody could say it is cold, especially for the end of the first week in November. That's really quite an amazing thing. I see you've got Dino there. Good morning, Dino. Darken Scotland. Prayers. Aye. Yeah, indeed. It's just like here, I think, except obviously up in Scotland, even further north, even darker. I think there should be free, what are those things called? Those solar lights or something or other lights. That they're against seasonally something and disorder, so you don't get enough sunlight. Anyway, you should have one of those. Good morning, Lisa and Dana. Good morning. Dark and cold here, but yeah, but you've got up in the middle of the night. Here it's 10 o'clock in the morning, and it is not dark but miserable and horrid out there. There we go. I did a little short this morning. If you get onto this channel, look up shorts, you'll see there are two shorts that came up today, a pair of shorts. One of them is from last Sunday's sermon, and the other one is from our little chapel in the monastery, St. Peter and Paul Chapel. Looking really very pretty this morning, so I thought I would share that with everybody else. It's deliberately darkened in there, so you can't see the icon so clearly on the iconostasis in the film. You can if you have your own eyes to look at it. Anyway, I put the Magnificat on top of that, although it does sound as if we've got a huge choir in there. And in fact, it holds about 5 people at a squash. Who else is here? We've got Miss Connie. Good evening. Peppy. Good morning. Loving sweeping the leaves. Oh, the street ones, yeah. It's quite a good idea to sweep your leaves into your flower borders. Then it mulches the flowers, it feeds the worms, and it stops the worst of the weather getting to the roots of your plants. Christos, good morning. Good morning, Simon. Good morning, Dino. You really enjoy the shorts? Jolly good. That's good to know. Good morning, Nicoletta. God bless you and keep you. Okie dokie. So off we go. Looks to be a sort of pencil graveyard here. Normally I'm complaining because people borrow pencils from my office behind me and they waltz off somewhere else and I never get them back. So Stadler does a fine trade in H.B. Norris School, made in Germany, upcycled wood, yellow and black pencils from me. I think they probably always have done throughout my life. They seem to be a standard bit of equipment. I prefer writing in pencil than in pen. Anyway, there we go. Today we're going to look at the entirety of a chapter 13 in the book of Genesis. Here we go, read the whole thing. It's interesting, but there's not vast amounts in it for us to think about. Now, Abram went up from Egypt to the south, he and his wife, and all that he had, and Lot with him. Abram was very rich in cattle, silver, and gold, so he went on his journey from the south as far as Bethel, to the place where his tent was at the beginning, between Bethel and Ai, the place of the altar he made there at the beginning. There Abraham called on the name of the Lord. Lot also, who went with Abraham, had flocks and herds and tents, but the land was not able to support them, so they might dwell together, for their possessions were so great they could not dwell together. So strife arose between the herdsmen of Abraham's livestock and those of Lot. Now the Canaanites and the Perizzites dwelt in the land at that time. So Abraham said to Lot, let there be no strife between you and me, between my herdsmen and your herdsmen, for we are brethren. Is it not the whole land before you? Separate from me. If you take the left, then I'll go to the right. If you go to the right, then I'll go to the left. Thus Lot lifted up his eyes and saw all the plain of Jordan, that it was well watered everywhere, before the Lord destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah. Like the garden of God, the Garden of Eden, like the land of Egypt, as you go towards Zoar. Then Lot chose all the plain of Jordan for himself and journeyed east. So they separated from each other. Abraham dwelt in the land of Canaan. But Lot dwelt in the cities of the plain and pitched his tent even as far as Sodom. Now the men of Sodom were exceedingly wicked and sinful before God. Then God said to Abraham, after Lot separated from him, lift up your eyes now and look from the place where you are, northward, southward. What's wrong with me? Eastward and westward. For all the land you see, I will give to you and your seed forever. And I will make your seed as the dust of the earth, that if a man should number the dust of the earth, then your seed also will be numbered. Arise. Walk in the land throughout its length and its breadth, for I'll give it all to you. Then Abraham moved his tent and went and dwelt by the oak of Mamre in Hebron and built an altar there to the Lord. There we go. Let's see how we get on. Oof. Good morning to Natalia. God bless me too. Okay, so breaking this up in chunks, so quite big chunks, we'll go by bit, mouthful by mouthful. Reminds me to have a drink of tea. So verses 1 to 2. Now Abraham went up from Egypt to the south, he and his wife, and all that he had, and Lot with him. Abraham was very rich in cattle, silver, and gold. So the whole family leave Egypt. They don't leave anybody behind. They have denuded Pharaoh of a lot of cattle and gold and other things, which through not perhaps the most guileless way, Abraham has received. So, in fact, they have been thrown out. This is slightly passed over here. They're now enormously rich. The words there, very rich in cattle, in the Hebrew says heavy with. They're not traveling light. They're traveling like, what did I see? Something about the baggage of some pop star, where they were traveling just with their clothing of large quantities of baggage. Or for that matter, one of my nieces, who flies wealthy people around the world, she travels with the most enormous suitcase, apparently, needing heaps of different stuff because she needs stuff for cold and hot weather all the time. And where do they go? They go to the south. Well, we believe this is the Negev desert. Now, if you look at a map of Israel, as it is now, and you look at the southernmost part of the strip of Gaza, and you draw a line directly horizontal between there going directly east then everything pretty well to the south of that line is the Negev desert. Nowadays, the very end point of that, there are various holiday destinations and things, but essentially that area is a desert. Bedouin families have been inhabiting that area for somewhere between 4,000 and 7,000 years. So the idea of Abraham himself also traveling through that area is by no means unlikely. The northernmost part of that is quite well known now for growing grapes, and has been for a long time. But the southern part is a very dry area, getting very little rain over a year, a matter of millimeters, some parts, 3-4 millimeters of rain per year, all in one go. So in order to have agriculture, since at least Byzantine times, they have channeled the wadis into subsurface dams, grown a certain amount of stuff, and not very much. Not so bad for animal husbandry, so long as you don't overgraze it. And that's why you need to have nomadic grazers. So you travel over an area, you don't come back to that area again for a considerable amount of time. And then when you do come back, you are eating the new grasses and stuff. You travel fairly rapidly, so you don't stay in one place for several weeks. You constantly move on. Now, this is the sort of life that I would recognize from the various nomads that my father used to work with. You had to find out where they were, find out where they were going, and intercept them on the way. And so long as you intercepted them in a nice, green, pleasant area, they're happy to stay there for a few hours with their sheep and goats and camels and other things. Not so much in the way of cattle, but sheep and goats, particularly in Afghanistan, would eat what was there, browse. My father would do whatever needed to be done with the sheep and cattle and the nomads themselves, and then you move on. So that was the sort of life that Abraham was living back then. And 7,000, 8,000, 9,000 years later, not 9,000 years since Abraham, but 9,000 years of that sort of culture still persists in several areas of the world. The Bedouin are being settled in different parts of Israel now, which is taking away that culture and that way of life, and probably not doing much good to the land itself, but there we go. Verses 3 and 4. So when he went on his journey from the south as far as Bethel, the place where his tent was at the beginning, between Bethel and Ai, to the place of the altar he made there at the beginning. There Abraham called on the name of the Lord. So this is, as it is with all nomads, you have a round trip that you make every year. You go up to one place, you catch the rains and things there, and the fresh grass. Then you go down to somewhere else, you catch the rains and the fresh grass there, or you keep away from the cold so your animals don't need so much food. Then the next year you go back again. So now we have a sort of view of the journeys, the annual migration of Abraham and his flocks from the Negev up to Bethel, then back down to the Negev again and up to Bethel. Probably that entire journey taking 1 year. Probably arriving in Bethel sometime in the spring to catch the nice spring grass, and then going off down into the south and so on for the winter time. So, quite a long journey, but he goes up there in order to reuse the altar that he has at Bethel. Remember, he built somewhere between Bethel and Ai. It's a good place to be. There are rolling hills up there, according to Google Earth. If you want to get onto Google Earth, you can look it up quite easily. Go and have a look to see where Abraham encamped, and indeed had to fight at some point. He goes up and down this particular area. Verses, you can look it up actually. There's also a very good site called Expedition Bible. You can find lots of interesting things there. There are loads of things actually. The Bible archaeology, all sorts of things like that are really interesting to look at. Even if you don't believe in the archaeology, it's very good indeed to see the scenery. And imagine our father Abraham tramping all over there with all his sheep, goats, cattle, and everything else, and weighed down with gold and silver, and therefore a target. Lot also, verse 5, until all the way to verse 13. Lot also, who went with Abraham, had flocks and herds and tents, but the land was not able to support them, so they might dwell together, for their possessions were so great they could not dwell together. So strife arose between the herdsmen of Abraham's livestock and those of Lot. Now the Canaanites and the Perizzites dwelt in the land at that time. So Abraham said to Lot, let there be no strife between you and me, and between my herdsmen and your herdsmen, for we are brethren. Is not the whole land before you? Separate from me. If you take the left, I will go to the right. If you go to the right, then I will go to the left. Thus Lot lifted his eyes and saw the plain of Jordan, that it was well watered everywhere, before the Lord destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah, like the garden of God, like the land of Egypt, as you go towards Zoar. And then Lot chose all the plain of Jordan for himself and journeyed east. So they separated from each other. Abraham dwelt in the land of Canaan, but Lot dwelt in the cities of the plain and pitched his tent even as far as Sodom. Now the men of Sodom were exceedingly wicked and sinful before God. Okay. Well, first of all, we have a little explanation why it is that Abraham and Lot couldn't live together in this particular area. Because the whole area is already settled. There are Canaanites, there are Perizzites there too. And if you're a nomad, then you have to keep away from that sort of city, because you soon muddle yourself up with their herds and their flocks. And they're not best pleased when that happens. Again, that is something I remember from my childhood with the Kuchi tribes traveling through the Baghlan area of Afghanistan. You'll see I lived in an oasis in the desert, a place called Baghlan. And the hills on either side were generally pretty dry, except in the spring. And the nomads would time their arrival on those hills at a time when they could graze their herds on those hills by the Kunduz River, Erko or Bicycle, and then carry on south, following the emerging fresh grass. And also, and were they going north? Maybe Mumpkin north. Can't remember. Probably they're going north now I think about it. Yeah, certainly they'll be going north. And then in the autumn, they'll be coming south. That makes more sense, to escape the coldness of Uzbekistan and places like that. But the nomads had to pay attention to the fact that the area around the Bicycle and other areas were already inhabited by other people. The Afghans who lived there too, and who would not be best pleased if they came and ate all their crops or fed on their pasture land. So they would drive them away, and the Afghans would be fairly heavily armed, as were the Kuchis. So there was always this sort of tension between the two of them. So they couldn't just go wherever they wanted to. They had to go between the cities and between their areas, keep away from them. And that didn't leave much in the way of land for Abraham and Lot to use together. So Abraham wants peace, though, within his family, and he does something that's pretty rare. Instead of imposing peace and saying, look, I'm the patriarch of this area, you do as I tell you, he gives that honor to his nephew, his adopted son, Lot. And he says, look, Lot, you make a choice. You choose where you're going to go, and I'll go to the other place. So wherever you choose to go, that's yours, and I'll have whatever you leave over. Now, there are two ways that here we have to remember the words, lift up his eyes. Lot lifts up his eyes, and what he sees is the fertile Jordan Valley. So he decides to go down there. He does not see that the people down in the fertile Jordan Valley have become, what's the word I want to say, overly civilized. You know, if you go to London or Manchester or Birmingham or somewhere, you see people there that are, I don't want to be rude to anybody, sort of overly civilized, shall we say, with their over-refined ways and their over-refined clothing and their slightly mincing habit. And the same was true of Sodom and Gomorrah and places like that. They were living in the flesh pots. They had given up on the reality and the hardship of the world, and were no longer quite so interested in the ways of God. They were very self-sufficient and thought they knew better than God, which is something that quite often happens as places become more and more civilized. They leave their trust in God and they begin to become rather soft and pampered, and their ways become soft and pampered as well, and luxurious and overly luxurious. Okay? It's good for them then to get out into the countryside and go and slop around in welly boots in cow dung for a bit, and get an idea about what actually sustains their life. Basically agriculture or heavy industry or fishing or digging in the ground. If you're not growing something, you're not mining something, if you're not hunting something, then in the end, everything else depends on that because there's nothing else to eat. Okay? So there we go. So Lot goes into this area inhabited by the naughty and bad people of Sodom, living in the city. And it says he pitched his tent there. Okay? He lifts up his eyes, he sees the flesh pots, and he goes and he pitches his tent there. It's going to turn out to be quite disastrous for him. But there we go. Verses 14 through 17. Then God said to Abraham, after Lot separated from him, lift up your eyes now. So Lot has already done that. And look from the place where you are, northward, southward, eastward, westward. For the land you see, I'll give you and your seed forever. And I will make your seed as the dust of the earth, that if a man should number the dust of the earth, then your seed also could be numbered. Arise, walk in the land, through its length and its breadth, for I'll give it to you. So God makes that promise to Abraham. It sounds like an empty promise to Abraham, to be truthful. Later on, he doesn't understand how it's going to happen, because he's already quite old, and his wife, Sarah, has not had a child. So what is his posterity? What is his seed going to be? Well, we now know that his seed is, of course, Christ, and therefore it is us. Therefore it is all the inhabitants of the earth. And what Abraham is looking at, in fact, is not just the land of Canaan, the land of the Perizzites, the land of what is now modern Israel, but he's looking at the entirety of the earth. The entirety of the earth, in the end, becomes the gift given to Abraham for his posterity forever, his seed forever, through the church. And just like when they had to re-inhabit the land of Israel, they're given it. Now it says, God, go and fight for it. You've got to go and conquer it. It's yours, now go and conquer it. So too it is now The entire world is the Lord's, and it's our job to go and conquer it. We don't conquer it with weapons, we conquer it with love. And that is something we must always have in our mind. Our job is to bring everybody, even if they have their own religion, even in the first corners of the world, into the kingdom of God. That is not a popular message nowadays. People think that we should keep our little cultural things to ourselves. It's quaint if we have these funny little ways, but the truth is Christianity either grows or dies, and it must grow. Otherwise, if it dies, it'll only be taken over by, the area becomes taken over by something else. And the something else is rarely going to be something that we'd want to have. So Abraham is up in the hill country. It's going to be arid. It's going to be hard. It's going to be stony and inhospitable. But this is the place where he can live in faith that God will actually give him everything that is there. Lot, on the other hand, has gone down into the flesh pots, into the easy part, into the easy life. And this is where he's going to find disaster. Okay, the flesh pots of iniquity. Now, meanwhile, in verse 17, Abraham is told to go and explore. Given you this land, now go and look around it. It's all yours. How nice. Will be his. So he has that relationship with God that enables him to trust God rather than in worldly comfort. A tricky life, but in the end, the right life. There we go. So we have two lots of pitching of tent now. Lot is next door to Sodom. What happens to Abram? Let's go and have a look. Then, verse 18, Abram moved his tent and went and dwelt by the oak of Mamre in Hebron and built an altar there to the Lord. Jolly good. So, whilst Lot is pitching his tent next to the house of iniquity, Abraham goes and he builds another altar at this place called Mamre, the place where the terebinths are, which are a type of oak tree. Now, if you'd like to get onto Expedition Bible, there's a very nice episode about this particular altar at Mamre. You can look it up, but I'll put a link in underneath later on today, in a few minutes from now. This is a really interesting thing. It's got these big round circles, pits in the rock, which are the holes that the oaks at Mamre made in the rock back in the time of Abraham. And it still has a altar there that we presume that Abraham built, this big open platform. It also has a Byzantine church ruins and various other things and other bits and bobs there, and a spring, which explains why this was a good place to go and pitch his tent. So it's on rock, so it's going to be dry. There's a spring, so he's got water for watering himself. There are troughs there, you can see, in which the water would be stored for his cattle, his sheep, his goats, his camels, and of course for himself and his family. And you can go and look at it's not a very long video, Expedition Bible yourself in a few minutes from now. Really interesting. And the guy who does it, he's very much an evangelical, and some of his theology, as with all evangelicals, is like a jellyfish. These jellyfish. It's wobbly, and it melts in the full light of the sun. But never mind. What his archaeology is far better than his theology. Okay, so I think we can leave it there. I've got some interesting things happening today. I am very, very busy today. I don't think I've got a single minute to myself all day long. Not even time, as somebody says, to turn my head. But meanwhile, we need to pray. So we're going to pray for Theodora. and for Angeliki and Satira. They're all of them one group of people. Theodora is very ill. I must find out how she is doing. Angeliki is her daughter. Satira also has problems. John, who has cancer and is being treated for that, not well. Hilary, similar sort of situation. Both of them are being treated for with radiotherapy and so on, and chemotherapy. Daniel, who has a horrible, we now know what it is. It is a autoimmune disease. There are one or two possibilities. Maybe he's got both. And the fact is that this is actually attacking his nervous system and therefore giving him pins and needles in his body, and some paralysis, and affecting his eyes and his speech and so on. So it's called Guillain-Barré syndrome, and also Miller-Fisher syndrome, mixture of the two possibly. The other young Daniel, now at university, so keep praying for him, not yet playing football, so we want to see that, please. For David and Ita is, we've been asked to pray by Brother Ian for her. She is now improving. For Dorothy, who has dementia, and for Theseus, a little boy of 8, for Nicoletta, for Joseph, related to Erin, her son, Simon, son of Dino, who's with us today. It's my privilege, Dino. For Georgia, who's the daughter of Mariana, who is in fact flying today. For Jane, who has cancer and is receiving palliative care. For Johan and Fedor. Fedor is particularly grateful for our prayers. So please keep all of them in your prayers. I asked you particularly to pray for Daniel yesterday. Pray for them all. Okay? I have some interesting things to get on with today. So I better get on with them. We'll be praying for all of these people all over again in about 25 minutes from now. So, Christos, when you hear all these health issues, your heart sinks. Yes, but you know what? Several of these people are very much better and getting better far quicker than the doctors thought they would. For example, the one Daniel should have been dead 2 years ago. The other Daniel is improving at a rate the doctors cannot understand. Okay, really quickly. So you need to pray for them. You just have to keep on banging on that door, annoying God bothering. Say, hey. Maybe that's a bit cheeky, but we've asked for help. Now we want it. Okay. I think God likes us to be cheeky. Yet another pencil. What am I doing with myself? Okay. Righto. God bless you and keep all of you. Anything else? Anything? Sounds like a wagon train. Maybe that's me sneezing. Thought I was going to blow the things off the table here. Anyway, I hope it did some good somewhere. Dana says, thank you very much for your teaching. I don't sleep well or often. Your posts are beneficial for me while I sew. It's very nice, Father. Well, that's good to know, Dana. Maybe it helps you to sleep. Good strength, Kali the dynamic. Good power with God. Thank you from God. Okay, your prayers. So today is Little Friday. So there'll be nothing tomorrow, but on Sunday there should be a sermon, and there should be what else? A whole series of new shorts turning up, and of course the live stream. So you might care to join us for one or other of those. The sermon is about, well, it's the woman with the issue of blood, and also the daughter of Jairus, their faith, and then St. Paul talking about his faith in the cross, his trust in the cross rather than circumcision. So he did that, he got into trouble. And we ourselves basically, I'm telling you what the sermon's going to be about now, it's about our faith and our trust in the cross, our putting aside worldly things, our richness of Cleopas and the constant doctoring for the poor woman and the issue of blood got them nowhere. It was Christ himself that actually healed both the dead daughter and also the woman herself. And in the case of St. Paul, it's the faith in that cross that actually brings him to salvation. Ditto all of us. So anyway, you don't need to listen to my sermon anymore. Okay, your prayers. God bless you all. You want to see the dog again? Here we go. Right. One Jolly. Heading for everybody to see. Where are you, Jolly? There you are. Woohoo. Looking quite a cheery dog. And over here, my pencil graveyard. Okay, if you like this, please put a thumbs up. If you detested it, please put a thumbs down. Either them help me. If you want to share them with anybody, go ahead. Right, your prayers. Bye-bye. God bless you. There we are.